What's up everybody, welcome back. Now I am on the big boy camera today and it's got a wide angle lens on it, but the screen I can't make it face me, so I have no idea if I'm in focus or if I'm in frame. It is a wide angle, so it should be okay. There's also a microphone on top, so that should make it make the audio a little bit better, but please let me know if you like it. If not, I can always jump back to the little camera. Now I've made some progress on the Evo, but someone did comment in a previous video that I wasted the video by not showing how I pulled the chassis legs out in the end. I showed how to drill all the spot welds out, but I didn't show how I cut the chassis leg and actually pulled it out of the car. So what I thought I'd do today is I would put the old chassis leg back in the car. I do have a new one on the driver's side. We can compare the two and I can show you how I got it out of the car. Besides that, I thought what we would also do today is finish painting the Brembos. I have one over here that's nearly finished, I'll show you. So here, as you can see, the Brembo is sitting here all finished. So on this one here, I just used the Duplicolor red caliper paint and it came out pretty good. Okay, so with all that said and done, let's have a look at the chassis rails under the car and I can explain to you what I did and why I did what I did, and hopefully that'll help someone else out there trying to do the same thing to their Evo. Okay, so here we have the chassis leg back in the car. I've just held it in with some vice grips for now so that you can see what it looked like before it came out. Now it's not 100% in the spot it was, but it's like 98% where it should be. So to get this out of the car, what I did was I basically cut this chassis leg at this point all the way around. Now I did have to nip up into here a little bit, as you can see, just because the way that the angle grinder cuts, you can't quite get to the seam in here, so you've got to cut a little bit beyond it just so that you can get to the end of the chassis leg so that it will come out. And you can also see I've cut a section out. The reason I did that was just so that I could get some more room in there and see what I was doing, and then the hardest part is to actually cut with the angle grinder on the inside of the car, which I will show you now. Okay, so now we're on the inside of the chassis leg underneath the car. This section here is where I cut right through the chassis leg. The problem is when you try and cut in here with the angle grinder, because the wheel's so big, you can't get a nice cut on this because this is in the way. So what I did was I cut as far as I could straight through the chassis leg, and then because we're pulling this out, I started cutting on an angle. You can see this angle through here. So I started cutting through there, and then I managed to just get the angle grinder and make a bit of a cut in there, and that allowed me to pull the chassis leg out. Then what I did was I came back and I just trimmed up this little piece here nicely so that the new chassis leg would butt up against it nicely. So that's it. It's pretty easy to show you the existing chassis leg in here, kind of sitting in here. As you can see, we drilled out all these spot welds. Some of them I didn't go all the way through, all the way along here. This was obviously flush up against the bottom of the car, but as I've just sort of mocked it in there, it's not. If I actually take that clamp off and sit this in here, it sits perfectly against the car. So I'm pretty happy with how that turned out. So that's all been done. And then to compare that, as you'll see, actually this here is here's the cross member as well. That does attach there. When we put in the new chassis leg, we are replacing this with the new one, so that whole section will go all the way along and be a new piece, which will attach to that area in the middle of the frame right now. And then here we have the new chassis leg all mocked in. So I'm going to go around the other side and show you that now. Okay, so here's the chassis leg roughly mocked up on the other side of the car. Now on this side we are about 5, not even that, maybe 3-4 mil we need to push the new chassis leg up, but for the most part it is in there. And as you can see here, this is my cut line on the new chassis leg married up with the old chassis leg. So to do that, what I did was I took many measurements from as many places as I could to try and get this tape in the right spot. Now to do that, I measured off this seam here all the way back to where the cut was, and then I mimicked that on the new chassis leg. It takes a little bit of time. Make sure you quadruple check your cuts, because This here is a crucial joint in your chassis leg, and you don't want it to be you know, 10-20 mil out, because you'll completely ruin it. I would suggest, if you've never done anything like that before, take it to a specialist and get them to do it. So with the chassis leg in its current state, all I need to do is work it around a little bit more until it's perfectly in place. Do the same for the other side, and then what I can do is I can put the alloy subframe in there and make sure that these bolts here all line up and bolt in properly with the subframe, and then from there we can tack weld things in place just to make sure everything lines up perfectly. Also, what I have here is the end of the chassis leg that was cut off the new one under the car. So that's the first cut mark I made. So what I do is I actually cut the chassis leg going into the car a little bit longer, just in case I've stuffed a measurement, and then I slowly trim it back to that tape line that I showed you earlier, just to make sure that I don't stuff anything up, because you really don't want to stuff these cuts up, otherwise you will ruin the chassis leg. And over here, I guess you can see that is the old rusted out crusty chassis leg. So to compare, that would roughly be about there, and then I've cut out a section in the middle to help get it out of the car. So there you have it. That is how I got the chassis legs out of the car. I hope that makes sense. If it doesn't, please let me know and I'll try and clarify anything that you need to know. But basically you drill out those spot welds like I showed you in one of the previous videos, and the only part that I didn't show you was how to cut through those chassis legs, and then once you cut through those, everything falls out. That cut is crucial. Like I said, you can't get the angle grinder in there. I tried to use a die grinder. That was kind of awkward, so I just opted for cutting the piece of chassis leg that was coming out in all sorts of different areas, just to try and get it free from the car, and that worked. It came out great. So yeah, there you have it. New chassis legs in, just need to drop the other one in, and those are pretty much good to weld in. So I haven't started doing any welding yet. I have set it up over in the corner here. I think I may have shown you that in a different video. That's all ready to go. I just haven't taken that step to start doing the welding on the car. So what I have been doing is getting a lot of the stuff associated with the car done, so that everything's clean and ready to go when we put it back together, which is why we're painting the Brembos today, which is why we're painting the other Brembo for the rear today. I showed you half is hanging over here, the other half's hanging over the other side. I tried to paint them the other day, but the humidity here was so high that I was just running in condensation. It wasn't even sweat. It was disgusting. So I couldn't paint. The humidity was too high, and obviously the paint won't work properly when the humidity is like that. So the other thing I've done besides sorting out the Brembos and zinc coating bolts is I've finished all of the suspension arms for the rear. So I'll show you those now. So over here we have all of the chassis legs. They're all prepped, cleaned, all new ball joints, all new bushes, mustache bars being painted, we've got new sway bar and links, and everything over here is looking mint, as you can see. So I'm super happy with how those came out, and we are getting through some work here, which is absolutely fantastic, because when you start and you pull everything apart and you see how much you've got to do, it's quite daunting. The best way to do it is just start with the easiest stuff, start working into it, and before you know it, you're getting through things. The tasks get bigger, but you're able to tackle them because you just become familiar with everything, I guess. So besides painting the Brembos today, the other thing I want to do is start cleaning up the other knuckle and painting the other knuckle. I've got the other knuckle here all finished. So here it is. This is the other knuckle. It's all been painted, all freshly. I do have to go around with the die grinder and just sand off some paint in a couple of areas. And we've also got the freshly zinc coated hardware to go with it. I've also got freshly zinc coated hardware here, which is for the other knuckle. So that's going well. I wouldn't say I've mastered the zinc coating process yet, but I'm getting a lot better at it, so I'm very happy with that. Okay, enough talking, let's start painting some brakes. Okay, so here we have one brake caliper, and I'm just going to go over with some wax and grease remover and a clean cloth and give this a bit of a wipe down. Do the same with the other one, which I won't show you because it's the same thing, and then we can start laying down some fresh paint. Alright, that's all nice and clean. I'm going to go do the other one. I'll see you in a minute. So while everything's evaporating off this, I thought I'd just unbox this. So this is the clutch pedal for the Integra, so that when we do the manual conversion, we actually have a clutch that we can push in. Now it does need a bit of TLC. As you can see, she's rusty like pretty much everything else in this country. So I will get stuck into that, fully disassemble this, and probably just give it a bit of a paint, just prime it, and then just chuck on some kind of like Rust-Oleum. Nothing exciting because you ain't gonna see it. It'll be clean, it'll be tidy, but it won't be perfect because we ain't gonna see this thing once it's underneath the dash. Right, let's paint this thing. Got the caliper paint here. Right, so just gonna give this paint a good shake. Should probably do this up here because it looks awkward otherwise. Both hands are up here. Does anyone else like to spin the ball bearing just to try and loosen up the thick stuff on the bottom and then, you know, turn it upside down to get it to go through the paint? I don't know, that's what I do. You might be different. Okay, so with this paint here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a really light coat to start with, and then you've got to do 3 coats, a minimum of 3 coats within the hour. I'm pretty sure that's right. You can read the instructions for yourself, but that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do a light coat, and then I'm going to follow it up with 2 more slightly thicker coats, and that'll be good to go. That'll be the rear Brembos done. Super stoked with that because it's a lot of work. The other thing I need to do for this Brembo is I do actually need to sandblast the bolts down and re-zinc coat those, which I did for the other side, I haven't done for this side. And the other thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to hold a box up behind the caliper while I spray, just so that I don't get overspray on everything. There'll still be overspray, but not as bad. Alright, good to go. I'm going to go do the other one, and we can finish this one off in 10 minutes. Right, so it's time for the second coat. Quick game. Quick game's a good game. Okay, I'm going to go do the other side. Alright, final coat, and then we can move on to painting the rear knuckle. Alright, looks good. I'll go do the other one, and then we can check it out with a close-up. Alright, Brembos are painted, so let's see how they came out. So, as you can see, came out pretty nice. They get a little bit of an orange peel on them, nothing too like drastic, but I'm pretty happy with that. And the other one is over here. So here's the other half, and as you can see, she's come out nice and flawless like the other side. Okay, so while I was painting those, I was preparing the other rear knuckle for painting. Now, getting the ABS sensor out of these things is an absolute nightmare. I liken it to the bitch pin in the Honda. If you know, you know. Absolute pain. Right, so this thing down here is all ready to clean up and paint. Now this here is parts of the ABS sensor as I pulled them out. As you can see, come out in a few different parts. Absolute pain in the butt. I basically used a combination of the punch, hammer and the drill to get it out, and that sits in this little hole right here. Now I think I'm going to put some anti-seize copper paste stuff in there so that they don't get stuck in there in the future. But let's give this thing a bit of a clean down and we can start painting it, and I'll show you what we are painting this with very shortly. So also noticed on this knuckle there's quite a bit of corrosion, so I will grab the wire wheel on the drill and give that all a once over, and we can have a look at it once I've done that. Alright, so here we have the cleaned up knuckle all ready for painting. Basically I use the wire wheel stripped off all that crusty rust. I then went over it with the brake cleaner over there, brake and parts cleaner, gave it a really good clean down, and then I also went over it with some IPA just to give it another once over. It's super clean now, there's nothing coming off on the rag, so now it's time to paint it with this stuff here, which is a KBS Coatings Rust Seal. This stuff's super thick and super durable, which is going to be perfect for these, and that is obviously going to look like the other one that is sitting over here currently. So I'm just going to let that dry a little bit more and then let's get to painting. And there we have it. There is one completely painted knuckle. Now the paint that I used, that I showed you earlier, you just brush it on with a paintbrush and then it self levels. Now bear in mind that the knuckle has a bit of a texture on it already, and that's why the paint looks like it does. But that's it. We are one step closer to finishing this Evo. So that concludes today's video on the Evo rear end restoration. It sounds kind of wrong. Anyway, that's it for today. I showed you through the chassis legs and how that all worked, and we painted that last rear Brembo caliper and knuckle. Now I, off camera, am going to go and zinc plate all the hardware for that, so that's all ready to go. And the other thing off camera is I'm going to clean up the rear hubs for the Evo as well and give those a quick bit of a paint so that I can reassemble the rear hubs. Now in the next video, I'm not too sure what that'll be. Things left to do are basically, I need to strip down the fuel tank and give that a fresh coat of paint because it's a little bit rusty. And then we need to basically, I think, weld in the chassis legs, and we're pretty much ready to start reassembling. Oh, the only other thing that I did want to do, sorry, is I wanted to strip down the rear diff and the subframe and give them a clean and a paint. So a bit more painting, and then we can start reassembling stuff once we weld in the chassis legs. The chassis leg thing, obviously I haven't really done much welding before, so I need to get better at that. I need practice. I do know people that can help me weld the chassis legs in, so I'm almost tempted just to get someone in to quickly weld in the chassis legs. They're ready to go, and then once those chassis legs are in, we'll strip the whole underside of the car, give it a full fresh coat of paint, and then we can start putting this thing back together. And while I'm speaking, I just noticed the AYC pump. That's one other last thing that we need to do before we can put the car together. So that's it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any ideas as to other ways I can film, what you want to see more or less of, just let me know. Throw a comment down below, and we'll have some Integra content coming out soon as well. So thank you, like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.